ABC General Hospital spoilers reveal that the confirmation hits Port Charles like an earthquake Eden McCoy has to officially departed General Hospital, and with it comes the most devastating narrative shift GH has taken in years. Her exit means one thing: Jocelyn is dead. Not missing, not recast, not written off into a distant internship or a faraway college program. Dead. And the permanence of that loss detonates storylines in every direction, ripping open emotional landscapes and altering the show's trajectory in a way that no one in the audience or in Port Charles was prepared to confront. For more than a decade, Jocelyn has been a fixture of the show's beating heart, a fiery, impulsive, fiercely loyal young woman whose journey from troubled teenager to undercover WSB operative brought danger, complexity, and vulnerability into every room she walked into. Her death is not just the end of a character. It is the unraveling of a legacy. Jocelyn represented the next chapter of the Corinthos Jax bloodline, and her loss tears a hole straight through the emotional core of the series. The reveal of her demise is brutal, sudden, and merciless, reflecting the high-risk world she insisted on entering, one that ultimately devoured her. Her final mission, the one Brennan warned her to stay away from, becomes the fatal thread. Brennan insists he never intended for her to get hurt, but intentions mean nothing now. Jocelyn's body, recovered after a covert operation gone catastrophically wrong, becomes the symbol of everything Brennan failed to control and everything Carly can no longer forgive. Carly's world collapses instantly. Her grief is feral, her silence more terrifying than any scream. For Carly, losing Jocelyn is not just losing a daughter. It is losing the one person who stayed tethered to her even when all time else fell apart. Jocelyn was her mirror, her air, her emotional anchor. And now that anchor is gone. The shock freezes Carly at first, an eerie stillness, a pause before the storm. But beneath that stillness is something ancient and combustible. It grows in her like fire under ice. Restrained only long enough for Carly to process the truth: someone is responsible for her child's death. Someone pushed Jocelyn into danger. Someone ignored the signs. Someone used her. Someone did not protect her. And all roads lead back to Brennan. This is where the narrative transforms. Brennan once positioned himself as the calculated, untouchable architect of WSB, maneuvering always 3 steps ahead, always managing threats before they could touch him. But he never imagined the threat he would face would come in the shape of a grieving mother whose rage has been honed by years of surviving heartbreak. Brennan underestimated Carly. He believed her strength was emotional, not strategic. He believed her threats were impulsive, not actionable. He believed her fury could be reasoned with. He was wrong. Jocelyn's death ignites a version of Carly the town has not seen in years: primordial, cold, strategic. The grief sharpens her, not shatters her. She becomes methodical, controlled, terrifyingly calm. There are no public outbursts, no dramatic accusations, just a silence so heavy that even sunny Corinthos hesitates to approach her. Carly studies Brennan the way a hunter studies prey, mapping his routines, examining his weaknesses, watching the way guilt flickers behind his mask of authority. Brennan feels the shift too. He senses the danger tightening around him, but he does not yet understand the magnitude of what he has unleashed. He has faced criminals, militants, corrupt officials, but he has never faced a mother who has nothing left to protect but the promise of justice. Meanwhile, the entire structure of GH begins to warp around the gravity of Jocelyn's absence. Every character tied to her Trina decks, Michael, even Sunny, feels the rearrangement. But no change is greater than the one set in motion for Carly and Brennan. Their storyline, once a careful dance of tension, secrets, and uneasy alliance, now becomes a battlefield. GH uses Joss's death not just as shock value, but as narrative propulsion, reshaping Brennan's arc from morally ambiguous strategist to the man squarely in Carly's crosshairs. What makes the shift so compelling is that Brennan is not purely evil. He is layered, calculating, and convinced that every move he makes is in service of a greater good. But those shades of gray evaporate in Carly's view. In her eyes, he becomes the architect of Jocelyn's death, a figure who dangled her daughter between danger and duty until the rope finally snapped. Carly does not seek to punish Brennan professionally or expose him legally. She seeks to break him the way she has been broken. The writer sees the opportunity to push Carly into the darkest arc she has had in years. Her grief becomes the engine of transformation. She starts operating outside the law, forging alliances she would have once rejected, embracing strategies that mirror Sunny's more ruthless years. The softer Carly who once found healing in family dinners, friendships, and rebuilding her life fades. In her place stands a woman carved from vengeance, instinct, and raw emotional devastation. Brennan, for the first time, fears something he cannot manipulate. He tries to regain control, tries to tighten the narrative, tries to position Jocelyn's death as an unfortunate consequence of espionage. But Port Charles no longer accepts his explanations. As more details surface, warnings ignored, missions pushed too far. Protective measures withheld, Brennan becomes isolated. He finds himself hunted not by law enforcement, but by a mother who has decided his life must be dismantled piece by piece. The death of Jocelyn becomes the pivot point that turns General Hospital's story in an entirely new direction. Eden McCoy's confirmed departure gives the writers full freedom to explore the aftermath without holding back. The emotional wreckage transforms into narrative opportunity, Carly as a vengeance-driven anti-hero, Brennan as the hunted architect of tragedy, and Port Charles is a city about to fracture under the weight of a mother's wrath. And as the dust settles, one haunting truth remains. Jocelyn died on a mission she should never have been on, and Carly will make sure the Bach man responsible pays for it in ways he never imagined. After the death of Jocelyn, General Hospital shifts into its darkest emotional terrain, and no one feels the impact more violently than Brennan. What should have been just another operational failure, a tragic but calculated casualty within the world of intelligence work, becomes something far more personal, far more destructive. Brennan expected political backlash, WSB scrutiny, and a tightening circle of suspicion. What he did not anticipate was the devastating collapse of the one connection he had come to value more than the power he once worshipped, his fragile, complicated bond with Carly. Brennan has survived scandals, coups, betrayals, and internal investigations. But nothing destabilizes him the way Carly's silence does in the days following Jocelyn's death. It is not rage that frightens him. He knows how to handle rage, knows how to redirect it, manipulate it, soften it. It is the absence of emotion, the cold withdrawal. The way Carly no longer looks at him with annoyance or reluctant understanding or guarded curiosity. She looks through him now as if he is no longer a man, but a void that swallowed her daughter whole. For the first time, Brennan feels something he cannot control, fear of losing the woman he never meant to fall for. He replays the last conversations he had with Jocelyn, the warnings he gave her, the boundaries he failed to reinforce. He replays the moment he realized she had gone too far into the operation he believed he had secured. He replays most of all the image of Carly learning the truth, the way her shoulders stiffened, the way her breath hitched, the way her expression hardened into something brittle and wordless. He once thought he understood the psychology of loss, but watching Carly grieve is like watching the sky fracture. She does not scream or collapse. She calcifies. And Brennan feels her slipping away with every passing second. He tries to justify himself, though only internally, because he knows explanations will roll off Carly like water off stone. He tells himself he warned Joss. He tells himself she chose this path. He tells himself he never intended harm. But beneath those rationalizations is a truth he cannot escape. He had the power to protect her and he didn't use it. Not because he didn't care, but because he cared too late. Carly's daughter is gone, and Brennan knows that timing is the cruelest currency in Port Charles. Once a moment is lost, no amount of regret can resurrect it. Carly, for her part, becomes an emotional horizon he can see but no longer reach. She withdraws into herself, into the memory of her daughter's voice, into the silence left behind by Jocelyn's absence. Brennan tries to approach her, but the grief radiating from Carly is a force field repelling him with a quiet violence. He has faced armed rebels, corrupt agents, assassins with dead eyes and steady hands. But nothing terrifies him more than the realization that Carly now views him as the origin of her suffering. He cannot negotiate with that. He cannot strategize around it. He cannot fix it. The tragedy of the moment is that Brennan, perhaps for the first time in his life, genuinely loves someone, and that someone now has every reason to hate him. His desperation grows in silent increments. He begins trying to repair the narrative, to trace the path of the operation, to uncover the exact person or event that pushed Jocelyn into fatal territory. He hopes that if he can identify a culprit, someone else, anyone else, Carly might redirect her grief away from him. But every avenue he explores loops back to the same terrible reality. Jocelyn acted because she believed in the mission he allowed her to participate in. Her death is a chain that begins with his decisions. This awareness gnaws at him, reshaping him from the inside out. The confident, calculating Brennan starts to unravel. His sleep fractures. His judgment blurs. His once sharp instincts dull under the weight of guilt. The WSB begins to question his reliability, sensing instability in the very man who once commanded fear with a single glance. Brennan tries to steady himself, but the emotional quake created by Jocelyn's death continues to send aftershocks through every part of his life. What crushes him most deeply is the knowledge that Carly will not forgive him because she cannot. Not now, not soon, maybe not ever. Her heart has been shattered, and she is gathering the pieces not to rebuild but to weaponize. Brennan sees the change in her posture, in her stillness, in the way she studies him without speaking. She is no longer grieving alone. She is preparing for something. And though he does not yet know exactly what form her retribution will take, he knows he will deserve every part of it. Still, he clings to the impossible hope that he might salvage even a fragment of what he once shared with Carly. He tells himself that if he can prove he didn't intend harm, if he can show her that he would have protected Jocelyn had he understood the danger better, maybe she will let him remain beside her. But hope is a fragile lie, and Brennan feels it collapsing under the pressure of reality. Carly's love, if it ever existed, has shifted into something cold and unreachable. And yet Brennan cannot walk away. The tragedy binds him to Carly more deeply than desire ever did. He watches her mourn and feels the hollow ache of knowing he is both the cause and the witness. He would trade his career, his reputation, even his freedom if it meant undoing what happened to Jocelyn. But life in Port Charles rarely offers second chances, especially not to men who gamble with the lives of the innocent. As the story accelerates, one truth becomes undeniable: Brennan is losing Carly. And losing her may be the one wound he cannot survive.